Welcome to Lead Without Losing Yourself. I'm Rachel, a leadership coach for the veterinary profession. If you caught episode 1, you'll know this podcast does things a little differently. Each episode is a real coaching conversation with someone in the veterinary world. Brave humans willing to bring the messiness of real life, real leadership into the coaching space so others can reflect and learn and feel a little bit less alone. In today's episode, I'm joined by Elliot Goodwin. I was genuinely excited to speak with Elliot. He's one of those people who's achieved a huge amount already, and yet you sense there's still so much more under the surface. He graduated in 2014, and by the age of 25 became a practice owner, working tirelessly to build it into what it is today, a 7-day-a-week practice with on-call service that's been running ever since. But that is just the start. Elliot is also a father of 2. He shares his home with around 50 animals. He's a governor at the local nursing college. He sits on the English Goat Breeders Association Council, and also, when he has time, hosts his own podcast, The Vet with Pets. Please check it out. There are a few themes in this episode, strength being a significant one, and I weave that into the session in an unusual way right from the start. Beneath the surface, Elliot is grappling with some big questions. How do you balance ambition with presence? How do you stay true to long-term goals without sacrificing the moments that matter now? And what if life could feel easier without losing your edge? The conversation moves from business decisions to the deeper emotional currents around family and legacy and the way we see ourselves when we're not achieving. We talk about the tension between work and home, the fear of running out of time, and a single question that could change the way you lead and live. How can I make this easy? Whether you're a leader, a business owner, or simply someone who's tired of feeling like life has to be hard to be worthwhile, this episode will give you a fresh lens and maybe even permission to do things differently. Every coaching session is unique. That is what I love about this work. In this one, we touch on identity and fatherhood and overwork and dreams of owning a farm and the fear of not being good enough. Any one of those topics could be easily a 90-minute deep dive session on its own. But Elliot and I hadn't worked together before, so this was about tugging at threads rather than rushing to fix. I realised early on that it was important to listen for what wanted to be heard, to reflect and challenge in a way that widened awareness, and to shine a light on the things that perhaps Elliot had been dancing around internally for years. In the early stages of a coaching partnership, spaciousness is vital. Space to hear yourself, to meet your edges gently, to allow more of you to surface. And that's what this episode was about with Elliot. Leadership can be a lonely place, and with so little time for yourself, it's rare to have a space like this to be deeply human. For many leaders, I would say coaching is a kind of medicine. So here is your front row seat to a conversation that might just change the way you think about strength, success, and ease. So this may set the direction for the session today. We did talk about particular themes, quite big themes actually, guilt and shame and responsibility. They are huge. And there will be something within all of that, a little thread that we can pull at that will reveal something really important for you. But there's one thing that I often do before I come to a coaching session is when I'm able to, and with 2 young children, that's pretty difficult. But usually when I'm brushing my teeth or doing something that doesn't require much thinking time, I ask my unconscious mind to give me a word that's really important in the context of whoever I'm coaching that day. And I bring the word to the session. It may be something, it may not, it may just be something you need to take away, or it may actually lead us into a big conversation today. So we'll see. That word for you today is strength.
Interesting. I was wondering what word you were going to come up with.
It could have been one of many things, couldn't it? Yeah. So, even though Elliot and I had already talked about what might come up today, I decided to throw something different into the mix and start with this intuitive word exercise. I don't do it all the time, but it is one of my favourite ways to open a session because it helps people settle in, but it also shakes up the idea that coaching is just about charging straight towards a fixed goal. Now, Elliot is definitely a high achiever. He's got big ambitions. So, this is my way of saying, let's see what happens if we don't rush to the finish line. So, what happens when I say that word to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice because I mean, strength is one of those words that can mean so many different things to so many different people. Um, I I can see why you've come up with that word, and I think in terms of my day-to-day existence, I think that's something which, yeah, giving it some thought, I think could summarize quite a lot of elements and that I like to portray, even if I don't necessarily feel it at the time. And I think that in my sort of role modeling capacity, whether that be at work or at home or wherever, I think that there's probably a lot of people that look to what I do and think, oh, I don't know how he does that, even if it's imperfect. And I think there's, yeah, and I suppose actually, I suppose on to a reasonable bit of self-reflection, I think on self-reflection, I do sometimes think that strength is something that it takes just to carry on, even in the face of adversity sometimes. Yeah, maybe combined with discipline and motivation.
Mm. I feel like you've had to draw on a lot of strength on your journey so far, starting a practice at a younger age, an unusual age for someone to start a practice. 25 you were, weren't you?
Mm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was 25 when we opened the doors, which means that, I was less than that when we started on that journey. And that was 8.5 years ago now. So I think even at 34 years old, I'm sort of relatively young veterinary business owner in the
Mm.
grand scheme of things. And yeah, it has been an interesting personal journey and strength to continue, I think is how I'd summarize it. It does come into that. I don't really like talking about stuff like that because I don't see myself as a strong person at all.
Now, he's just told me he doesn't really like talking about that stuff, but that's not my cue to steer away. The magic is often hidden in the very work we try to avoid.
Uh, but I think it's not until I sit and objectively go through some things and think, well, no, I can see why that could be the case. I certainly don't feel strong when I come home of an evening and uh, my little boy was apparently crying at bedtime because I wasn't there, and I'm there maybe twice a week for bedtimes. So yeah,
It's interesting that you don't see yourself as a strong person, because I guarantee if you ask everybody else, they would say you are. And isn't strength built
yeah,
through
maybe.
resilience? And resilience is built through getting through the tough times, falling over and standing back up again, over and over and over again.
I think that's what you call stupidity sometimes.
Insanity.
And yeah, maybe and an inability to give up as well, which sometimes stands you in good stead, but can also be slightly self-destructive as well.
Oh, yeah. There's a spectrum, isn't there? You can
Mm.
go too far one way, and it's almost like a dance to stay a little bit in the middle and have it serve you without compromising you as well.
Hmm.
You seem to be at a pivotal point in your life where you've achieved what you've achieved, but I get a sense that you maybe want to do things slightly differently moving forward. Not in a completely transform your life way, but just have it feel a little different to you moving forward. I wonder if
Mm.
the meaning of the word strength will mean something differently to you moving forward, or could you want it to mean something different to you moving forward? How could strength serve you in a different way? Up to this point, strength for Elliot has mostly meant endurance, pushing through, carrying on. And I don't want to diminish or belittle that at all because it's clearly served him in huge ways. But I was curious, what if strength could mean something different? Could it become softer, more strategic, more self supportive? This is just an invitation to explore, not to replace what's worked, but to gently open the door to a new way of seeing it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's, yeah, I don't know, because I feel like I'm at a, not strictly speaking, a crossroads in life, but sometimes you have those decisions where you never know. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's not until you have the benefit of hindsight that you look back and think, oh, that was right or that was wrong. It's a case of I am an impatient person, and I like to goal set, and I like to think of the future in like a positive, like engaging sort of way. But then sometimes that turns into, oh, how do I make this present into that future, and what is the roadmap to get from here to there?
Hmm.
And an example that I would give at the moment is one of our long-term goals is we want to own our own land, myself and my wife.
Yeah.
We still want to buy a farm effectively to do a bit of farming, but also to have a collection of animals that we enjoy keeping and that sort of thing. And that has always been one of my fundamental goals in life. And I think staying true to that course is one of the things I find challenging. Case in point being that I've just had my practice valued. I don't mind sharing the value, so it's valued somewhere around 700,000. So I'm at this dichotomy where do I try and cash that in to then actually start the cogs turning with buying something that we want to buy, or do I stay the course that I'm on at the moment, which I do enjoy? I love the business and I love the team and everything else. And do I see that through for longer, with the potential outcome being that ultimately that might financially be better? So there's a real conflict there. And I think where that strength comes in is being comfortable with the decisions that you make. And I think in my head, I think it takes a reasonable amount of strength to stay true to that and to be comfortable with yourself. So even on those really rough days where you think this is the wrong decision, you've still got that inner strength to think, well, no, I made this decision for these reasons, and I need to see it through.
Mm.
That was a very waffly answer.
No, waffly answers welcome. Part of speaking that through is understanding it more as well. When you told me the problem that you have at the moment in terms of making that decision of business versus farm, I got
Mm.
goosebumps because that's
Versus,
huge, right?
versus family, sometimes it feels.
Mm. Yes. I would love to hear the vision of the farm and the family. Could you share it with me? What are you imagining?
Oh, this, yeah. So it's a really good question, and I think this is why I try not to get emotional and hear it coming through my voice. Is that I'm from a farming family, a relatively fractured one, I would say.
This moment is important in the context of where this session goes and where it ends. Up until this point, Elliot has mostly been speaking from the head about goals and decisions and strategy. When the emotion comes in here, it's the first sign that we're shifting into heart space. That change in tone is important because later in the conversation, we go even deeper into something more personal and vulnerable.
I feel really privileged to have had the upbringing that I have had, and I think I was very lucky to have the situation and the parents and everything else. But as an adult, farming family relationships are more strained, and it's something that I don't deal very well with because I think it's for me an element of what drives me is that I want to be able to provide for my children in the same way that generations before me have done. And for me, that legacy is a big part of it. The criticism of that thought process would be that I trying to sort of then not live vicariously through my children, but am I trying to put something there that isn't needed or wanted? But I think the way I look at things is that with I don't know, I think the way that society is changing and I think the way that the world that my children live in, even compared to the world that I grew up in, which really isn't that long ago, I just think that things are so much more different than what they were. Things are so much more complicated. And if at the end of my days, I've left behind the potential that they have got the option to have a legacy of space and what's the word for it? I guess it's sort of like being part of something, I suppose. I don't know if you talk about it, and there may well be people who listen that are familiar with farming terms, but it's a nice metaphor. But in sheep flocks, you can talk of them as being hefted, and what hefted means is that you put those sheep up on the hill, and they don't need a fence, and they don't need a shepherd, they don't need anything. They know where to go, and they know where their patch is. Interestingly, I think what a lot of people forget is that that is rooted in generations of previous shepherds in showing them where their place is on that hill and guiding them back to it and saying, no, this is where you are. So I think if I could leave something behind for my children, that would be what I'd want to leave behind. So I think that's where I don't know. I think in terms of goals, motivation, and discipline, and that is my motivation to bring it back into the vet practice side of things, and that I this for me is something that I am also so passionate about and enjoy is being a business owner and owning the vet practice, and I like the responsibility element of that to my colleagues, to my clients, to my patients. Marrying that up with future goals then is difficult because I'm privileged to enjoy what I do.
Yeah. I've been writing down a few things as you've been speaking. There is a lot in there. So I want
You,
to,
you could do a whole podcast series on me, I reckon,
I think
in the least
so.
big-headed way possible.
I would love that because there is so much here. And I want to find a way to keep it really simple because I think inside of you,
Mm.
it probably doesn't feel that simple. And it kind of feels like it's this or this. Can I have the farm and the business, or does it have to be the farm
Mm.
or the business?
I think it more feels like time. It feels like, to me, it feels like the passing of time. Um, I don't know. I think to go back to that idea of strength, I know enough about myself that I think I can see many of these things through. Um, but it then becomes a case of we are all mortal, and the passing of time is something which we have no control over.
Mm.
So if I had 100 years, if I had 150 years, yeah, I'd be no problem at all. But you don't, and time passes, and the children get older, and myself and my wife Emily get older, and it's a case of when is the right time to do things. When is the right time to see the business to fruition and sell it? When is the right time to invite partners in?
And how have you answered that question in the past when you've made decisions?
I do everything all at once.
When Elliot says he does everything all at once, I'm listening for what that reveals about how he operates. It tells me he carries a sense of urgency, maybe even a fear of running out of time, and that pace becomes his default. I'm always interested in bringing awareness to these patterns because often we don't stop to question them. Why do we do things this way? Is it serving us now, or is it simply how we've always done them? Sometimes what got you here won't get you there, and naming the pattern opens the door to exploring what it might be like to do things differently. And that's a thread I'll gently pick up again later in the session.
My Emily often says to me, she says, "Oh, like there's plenty of time. We don't have to do everything all at the same time." Whereas I think completely the opposite. I think, well, there's never going to be good enough time to do X, Y, or Z, so therefore you just do it now. I own the business. I have a young family. Um, I'm relatively recently a governor at a nursing college. I sit on a council for the English Goat Breeders Association as part of that charity. We're deep in plans to launch a wildlife charity, and I take pleasure in doing that. But I think it doesn't take much rooting around. See, that's the sign of a person who is tired, and to keep going, they just do lots of stuff. So
Sure. There's something here for you around your relationship with time, because I have absolute confidence that you can make any big decision. You've made a lot of decisions on your own so far.
mm.
So I don't think you need help with that. Tell me about this sense of running out of time. Who says you're running out of time? This question is designed to disrupt what seems to be a long-standing narrative, to slow him down just enough to observe his own mind and open space for something new to emerge.
Yeah, that's a really good question. No one but me. Uh, Everyone who looks in on my life will frequently say, like, "Yeah, you're mad. You had a practice at 25, and at that stage you already had one child, and then the second one came along not long afterwards." And so yes, I think it's nothing that's forced upon me by anyone else. I think it's completely internal, and I don't look at it in I don't look at it in terms of I need to get there to be happy, because I feel happy with where I am. It's not that I'm unhappy and I feel like that will make me happy.
Mm.
I don't know. It's a different sensation to that. It's more a case of wanting to get that stage. Pitfalls of personal ambition, I suppose.
So you caught something before, which I think is really important. I wrote this down earlier as I was thinking ahead of your session today. I wrote down when I then I thinking, because we can fall into this trap so easily, but you're not there. So you caught that it's not about when I get there, I'll be happy. It's not about achieving the goal and being happy because you are happy. So it's not when
Mm,
I, then I. So we're going to take that off the table, but I do want to acknowledge that sometimes that is a pattern. But there's something
mm,
here around a goal feeling like, and tell me if I'm wrong, because this is just how I'm feeling it in my body. A goal is like a destination to get to rather than a
mm.
direction. I must get
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And it's sometimes helpful to think about it as a direction rather than a destination. And what would change in you if you did see it as a compass rather than a
Mm.
final resting place?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good question.
This part of the session was such a turning point, not because of a big breakthrough necessarily, but because of a shift in the air. You'll hear me share something I was sensing in my body. That Elliot's goals felt less like a guiding direction and more like fixed destinations. And it's not about being right, it's about opening something up. What I'm really doing here is inviting him to try on a new way of holding his ambitions, one that isn't about racing towards a finish line, but more about moving with intention. Simply introducing a new metaphor like direction instead of destination or compass instead of resting place gives a client a whole new lens to look through.
I don't know is the answer, other than I don't know. I don't know. Other than I think knowing myself, there's always another project. Yeah, I sort of do see it as a destination, but I guess differently. I think my idea of goals would be that I would see it more as it's a new starting gate almost. It's not necessarily a new beginning, but like a checkpoint, like a
Mm.
sort of a not even I don't know, not even a resetting. I don't know. It's hard to know how to describe it, but I don't know. All I know is that it wouldn't be a case if I'd get there and then I would be satisfied. Yeah.
It's almost like a checkpoint is a tick box. I'm here,
Mm.
box ticked, next thing. What does it mean for you to reach a goal? What does it mean for you to reach a checkpoint? You might notice that Elliot starts to slow down. He takes longer pauses, some of which I've even edited to cut shorter. And that's not a bad thing at all because those pauses usually mean we've touched on something important. I ask him what reaching a goal or a checkpoint actually means to him because often we're chasing something without ever stopping to ask why. These kinds of questions help us step out of autopilot and start making choices that actually feel right.
Mm. I think I don't know. I guess naturally I've been selected through schooling to be a high achiever and end up in veterinary. I never wanted to be a vet when I was growing up, um, but it was a natural thing to do that was suggested by one of my college tutors as a tiny bit of backstory for context. I like to learn. Um, I'm not too worried about recognition of that learning externally, and for me, a lot of the checkpoint feeling would be the personal satisfaction, the satisfaction of I've done that, I've reached that, that feels good, and I couldn't really care less if I have a pat on the back from anyone else. Um,
Interesting.
but no, I think that it would be the internal satisfaction.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, what would it mean if you didn't reach your goals? Asking Elliot what would it mean if you didn't reach your goals is not an attempt to trip him up. I'm actually curious about what story he might be holding underneath it all. Sometimes we push ourselves really hard without realizing it's not just about what we want, but what we're afraid of.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question because I mean if you'd have asked me, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years ago, if I thought I could reach some of these life goals, let's say having land, having a farm, that seemed quite out of reach not so long ago. And I'd reconciled in my head the fact that that wasn't going to happen how I wanted it to happen. But being the nature of someone who finds it difficult to give up, all that did was pushed me into looking at how do I go about leasing 300 acres, 400 acres and renting it rather than owning it. So no, to answer your question, I don't know. That sort of makes me sound bad at dealing with failure. Maybe I am, I don't know. But in a weird way, I do also feel like I fail in so many things as well. So
Mm.
I just reframe the problem.
Yeah.
If someone were to sit me down and say yeah, this isn't doable, which happens fairly regularly, I just reframe the problem and look at a different solution.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're really good at that. And you've got that tenacity to keep going, and you've got the strength to keep going. But you said something before. I find it difficult to give up. So if you don't
Mm.
reach your goals, does it mean you're giving up? And therefore, what does giving up mean about you? You'll hear me ask another what does that mean style question here, and this time it's about giving up. While the question itself might sound simple, what does it mean? What does it mean? It's doing some really important work. For someone like Elliot, who prides himself on tenacity, the idea of giving up probably means more than just walking away from a goal. It might touch something deeper, like how he sees himself or what he believes about success and worth. I ask these kinds of questions throughout the session to slow things down. Elliot moves quickly and thinks in solutions, so part of my role is to invite pause and reflection.
Hmm. Giving up means failure.
And if you fail,
If I fail, then I have to rephrase the problem again and reframe it. It's that looking at it, thinking, well, I'm going to look at this in a different way. So it feels less like failure, I suppose. An example would be in work, in business. We because of geographically where we are, and I don't know, a few other factors, recruitment of vets has been incredibly challenging. I through COVID, I did 2.5 years of 7 nights a week on call. I'm currently on, I don't know, month 6, 7 of 7 nights a week on call. But where that's relevant is that within that, that was, if I can't find other vets to do the on call, then two things happened. Or I can't find other vets to do the work. So I have currently got 2 other vets, but it's not really appropriate for them to do on call. So actually, there's the strength bit of me that thinks, well, it's fine, I'll just do the on call and it will happen. Because for me, it's important that I offer that as part of my business. But I still need to look at the failure of recruiting, total failure over the last 8 years of recruiting other vets, despite offering all sorts of wellbeing initiatives, everything else, and as working above and beyond as much as I can. So where this is relevant is that the failure was the business could have failed by me employing locums, locum after locum after locum, and we wouldn't have made any money at all. I would still be well into debt if I'd have gone down that route. Or I could have given up. I could have given up. I could have given up and I could have sold it and said, you know what, I can't make this work. But instead, what we did was turn around and said, well, do you know what? Neither of those two I see as an option right now. How can we look at the problem differently and how can we make it work? And so that's a roundabout way of saying I'm not very good at failing.
you don't let yourself fail.
Which is very toxic, I'd like to point out. Very toxic. Covered that in my own podcast before. And it's not a good role model.
So I've just reflected something back to Elliot. You don't let yourself fail. Now, it's not said with judgment. It's more that I'm holding up a mirror. And it clearly strikes a chord because he immediately calls it toxic twice. That word comes from him, not me, which tells us he knows this pattern runs deep. Now, sometimes as a coach, you name what you're noticing and you let the client decide what to do with it. In this case, Elliot doesn't deflect. This moment matters because it shines a light on the cost of always pushing through. The word failure comes with a lot of connotations, doesn't it?
It sort of implies that you've done something wrong. Because I'd say another example
Yeah.
where I feel like I am a failure is as a parent, as a father. That if there's a regret that I live with, it's that. Because actually, in doing all these things and being the best business owner that I can be, and moving towards goals that ironically are completely focused on what I want to provide for my children and future descendants, I don't see enough of my own children. I love them dearly, and I think they love me dearly. And that's something which is very difficult to reconcile, very much so.
Yeah.
But that's, again, just a reflection of the pathological bit of my character, I suppose, in terms of wanting to do all these things and be really good at them.
Elliot just shared something really raw and deeply personal, and I wanted to honour that moment, but we were also getting close to the end of our session, so I had to make a decision about where to focus next. So there's been a little bit of editing here because we had a little bit more discussion than a short pause where I was thinking carefully about how to bring us back to something that we touched on earlier, which is the idea of the goal as a destination. As we move into the next section, it might seem like a bit of a jump, but I knew this theme was still holding weight for him and that returning to it could help pull the thread through the whole conversation and give us a meaningful close. I keep coming back to goal is a destination. Goal is a destination.
Mm. Mm.
What about the journey to get to your destination? What are you missing potentially by trying to get here?
Um, and relationships, I suppose, in many ways, because yeah, I mean, I feel like I have a good relationship with my children and Emily, my wife, and I think that would be the thing which, with now the benefit of 8 years of hindsight as a business owner, um, has the have I put time into the relationships that matter most? Probably not. Is the answer.
And what if you did? What would be different?
It's a really good question. Um, if I did, I think I probably would feel happier. And I say I'm happy now, and I'm fairly burnt out, but I'm also happy at the same time, which is a weird sort of thing to say. But
Mm.
it's very lonely as a business owner, and I think a lot of us make the mistake of putting too much time into the things that really we think they matter. Yes, I think I would feel better. I think I would probably feel more fulfilled. I think I would uh, probably feel more meaning, perhaps, if I invested more time into his relationships.
By asking what he might be missing in the journey, I'm inviting him to reflect not just on what he's chasing, but why. He talks about relationships, about meaning, and he admits with real vulnerability that if he gave more time to the people who matter most, he'd feel more fulfilled. Now, it's one of those moments where the surface cracks open and something deeper begins to come out. Now, the question in my head, it may be the same in yours, becomes if that's what you really want, happiness, fulfillment, meaning, then why aren't you giving yourself permission to have it? This next bit might feel a bit squirmy to listen to because we do start touching some raw nerve endings around deserving and worth and the beliefs that shape how much joy we allow ourselves to have. I asked you what if you did? What if you did put more time into relationships and you said you would feel happier, you
Mm,
would feel more meaning and more fulfilled.
mm, mm.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how deserving are you to feel happier, more meaning and fulfilled? With 5 being incredibly deserving and 0 being not deserving at all. I think I said 1 to 5, but 0 to 5.
Oh dear, that's a deep question. I know exactly where I feel like to fit, which is the bottom end of the spectrum
Mm.
because of a number of factors. But yeah, no, it definitely would not be a 3, 4, 5. No,
Mm.
not on any day of the week.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but I think that I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to say to add on to that really.
It's
Other,
okay.
other other than yeah,
You
I'd
don't
hope
have
I wouldn't quite be a naught, but
to. Your but then was perhaps jumping into a positive reframe. Not many people go through life with the ability to positively reframe and spend a lot of their time in victim mode. And you don't want to be a victim of life. But I'm glad you didn't go there this time. I want to give this space. On a similar thread then, on a scale of 0 to 5, how worthy are you?
I don't know. I honestly would feel very conflicted giving an answer to that because I work so hard
Mm.
and I think work smart as well. I don't think it's just hard work. I think it's smart work too, but which I don't know in some ways make me think that maybe I should be, but then at the same time, I don't know. I think it's just an inner uh, insecurity to maybe want to be better, to want to be more worthy that would make me think I shouldn't be there at the top.
If there was one word that described how your life feels right now, and I mean business, home, family, everything in between, what would that be? As we were nearly out of time at this point in the session, I wanted to move us from digging around in the hard stuff to thinking about what could actually come next. Instead of asking, what goals do you want to hit? I asked something else. How do you want life to feel? Because I've seen it so often, we cling so tightly to specific outcomes, and if they don't happen exactly how we imagined, we end up feeling disappointed or like we failed. But when you get clear on how you want life to feel, suddenly there's more flexibility in how you get there. There's space for life to surprise you, to bring you something even better than you'd planned. And that's what I wanted to offer Elliot here, a little doorway into possibility.
Mm, how's it feel inside? I don't know. I don't know if it's the answer you're looking for, but I think probably a certain sense of overwhelm, I suppose. Um, but I think that's, I don't know, on an emotional level. I don't know, I think complicated but positive.
Ooh.
I don't know. I feel like things are in the right place, in the right direction. Um, do you know what? I think frustration. Sit with frustration.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it all should be so good, and it is good. But uh, it, yeah, I don't know. Frustration, maybe. That's a really rubbish answer.
No, not at all. And I wasn't looking for any answer because it's your answer and it's what's true for you. And it doesn't even have to make sense when it comes out. I think that's the beauty of coaching is that you can be just as messy as you want. Because at some point you'll
Mm,
get clarity. On the other side of chaos is clarity. So overwhelming, complicated, but positive, absolutely. But there's also there's also frustration. There's all frustration.
mm.
How do you want life to feel instead?
I'd like life to feel easy, but
Mm.
I'm not the sort of person to live an easy life.
So what does easy mean in the context of your life? When Elliot said he wanted life to feel easy, then quickly added that he's not the sort of person to live an easy life, I noticed a bit of tension. You probably noticed it too. It's like the word easy has picked up some meaning over time, maybe suggesting laziness or not working hard enough, and didn't quite feel like something he was allowed to want. So I asked what easy means in the context of his life, because that's what really matters, right? Not what the word is supposed to mean, but what it means to him. And sometimes just naming that helps people start giving themselves permission to want what they want without judgment.
Easy would mean probably more time to do things I enjoy, to be fair. Thinking on it, I think easy would mean naturally the day and age that we live in, some elements of financial ease, I suppose. Being financially secure has got to come into it.
So, more time to do the things you enjoy, financial ease, security. What else does easy mean?
Hmm. I don't know. I guess easy would mean less work in general. I suppose. So I do all the on call and stuff, and most weekends and easy. To be quite frank, easy probably would involve selling the practice and cashing it in and feeling eternally frustrated working as an assistant vet somewhere else, unable to make any decisions on anything. Depends what day of the week you ask me. Sometimes I wake up and be like, oh, I'll just sell it all. And other days I'm like, no, I'm loving this. Um, because actually I don't think it would be any easier, even if I did step out of
Mm.
management. There'd just be different difficulties.
So, less work, financial security, more time to do the things you enjoy. What does selling the practice give you?
Um, I suppose it would give probably all of those things. Probably would give time, money. Um,
What if now you lived your life through the lens of one question? How can I make this easy? We all live life through certain lenses, don't we? And just like blinkers on a horse, those lenses can keep us so tightly focused on one path that we forget there are other ways forward, other ways to live, other ways to lead, other ways to succeed. And it's a common lens I see in coaching, this one that says life has to be hard to be worthwhile. And sure, life is hard sometimes. There is absolutely no denying that. But when that belief becomes the lens we live through, we end up filtering everything through struggle. Then we miss ease, we miss joy, we don't give ourselves permission to feel fulfilled or to let things be good. So when I ask Elliot, how can you make this easy? I wasn't suggesting that he ditch his responsibilities or to take the easy way out. I was offering a different lens, one that might allow for sustainability, for peace, and for presence.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it sort of reflects what I try and do through the business, really, in terms of those concepts of the team around me taking on responsibility, doing things that used to be what I would do. Um, I think how could I make it easy would be a case of working out a way of making the things that I currently do still be doable and still be pleasurable. Of course, this is with the exception of spending times with friends and family and children, etc. But all the other elements of life is making them achievable, doable, still with the same, um, I guess, satisfaction, I suppose, to achieve all of that in less time, really, I think is what it would come down to. And in work, exploring the use of artificial intelligence, um, and outside of work with this wildlife charity that we're setting up as well, and just delving into the role that artificial intelligence will have with that as well.
Hmm. I'm noticing a real emphasis on work for you and maybe
Mm.
a very subtle, I don't want to use the word avoidance. I can't think of a different one around home life. And I think it's such a big topic that probably, we wouldn't have time to go into it
Yes,
today.
yes.
But there's something there.
No, no, you're dead on. It stems from a poor relationship with my parents nowadays. We still live, we rent from my family,
Mm,
and it's very difficult. It's very difficult. I want nothing more than for it to be better. Work is, I don't want this to sound like it's doing a disservice to Emily and the children, because it's not. Because I absolutely adore spending time with them, and I wish I could spend more time with them. But because that's so close to geographically as well as emotionally close to where I feel like I have a sense of belonging, it's actually work turns into a bit of a safe space because it's somewhere else. If you've ever had any experience of farming families before, there's a speed to fall out generation on generation in some of them. And unfortunately, I was born into one of those. But yeah, work forms an avoidance.
I think it's important to comment on what I'm doing here. I've been tracking themes throughout the session, and for a lot of what we've discussed, Elliot circles back to work. So here I'm holding up the mirror again. I let Elliot know that I've observed something, and then this creates a safe moment for him to bring forward something that he hadn't yet voiced. When Elliot shares his family dynamics and the inner conflict, I just let the weight of it be felt and give him space to process without rushing to fix anything. We didn't have time to stay here anyway, and I think it's a whole session in and of itself, to be honest, but I think it was super important that it came up and out. So from this point onwards, in the context of how can I make life easy, I'm thinking, could this now be not a goal, but more of an intention moving forwards? As I said before, asking the question of how can I make this easy? Using it as your compass to move forward rather than a goal or a destination of easy. Easy becomes
Mm.
my compass, my direction.
It makes perfect sense.
Mm.
Yeah.
The reason I asked that question, I find myself in, this is a side note, personal story. I had a business for 12, 13 years, and much like you, very much always on to the next thing. What can I do more of? What can I achieve more of? And I
Mm.
feel like I relate to you in many ways. Now, at one point, I set the intention, like you, of my compass became one word: simplicity. Simplicity was something I
Mm.
resisted for a very long time. And let me tell you, when life heard this intention and I set the energy of simplicity, my God, did it make it happen? And it stripped back everything that could not go with me into the future and gave me simplicity in a way that I could never have imagined. And I'm
Mm.
telling you that story because it might give you inspiration about using easy as a compass
Mm.
and as an
Mm.
energetic intention to move forward in your life. It may not be that you have to do anything more or achieve anything more, and it is just the energy of the intention, and
Mm.
life will work with you to bring that to you. I don't know when, I don't know how, and it will be in the most unexpected way. Life will work with you. You don't have to do all the work yourself.
Yeah, it's a good concept.
It's rare for me to share personal stories in a coaching session, even if I didn't share a lot of actual detail. And I'll be honest, I don't know if it landed for Elliot. He doesn't really say much in response, but that's okay because I wasn't looking for a big reaction or any reaction. I shared that story not to make it about me, but to offer a gentle nudge, a kind of final reminder, if you like, a pep talk maybe, that ease isn't something you have to chase. You don't have to do more to earn it. It's about showing up differently. It's about setting a new intention. And I wanted him to feel that just before we wrapped up, that life might meet him halfway if he let it. Whether he took it in or filed it away for another time, I wanted to leave him with something that took the pressure off, that said you're allowed to want this, and you don't actually have to make it happen all on your own. Okay, well, let's wrap up. I'm just very mindful that you didn't know what to expect from today, and you've not worked with me before. How are you leaving feeling?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. That did not go how I expected it to at all. Well, no, I didn't have any expectations, to be fair, but
Mm-hmm.
that was interesting. Yeah, it's a lot to think on.
So you might have noticed that things got quite quiet towards the end there, and that's pretty common. When someone has had a powerful shift, they often start processing even before we finish the session. We don't have to end a session with a bang. It's kind of more like everything starts to land and settle. And Elliot came in unsure of what to expect anyway. We covered so much as well, from goals and ambition to the meaning of ease to some of the deeper patterns sitting underneath it all. We didn't go into everything as much as I would have loved to. We just touched the edges of some things and touched the edges of something quite big at the end as well. But even naming it, giving it space, can start to change things. If Elliot were to come back for more sessions, I think we'd explore that tension between work and home, his relationship with responsibility, and what it means to feel emotionally free, not just successful on paper. There is so much there, and it's such important work for leaders to look at these things. Now, if you've been listening and thinking, gosh, that hits a little bit close to home, then maybe you're carrying a lot too. Maybe you're chasing goals that on reflection maybe no longer feel like yours. If so, then I would like to invite you to take the next step. There are 3 ways you can do that. You can take my scorecard, How Sustainable is Your Leadership Style? It takes just a couple of minutes and gives you personalised insights into where you're at. And I do try to personally respond to every single one. You can also watch my free webinar, The Invisible Load of Leadership. It's a real behind the scenes look at what's draining so many leaders these days and what to do about it. And the best thing is it's less than 30 minutes, so it's lunchtime or commute friendly as well. Or if you do want to go deeper, then every fortnight I release a limited number of 30-minute leadership reset calls in my diary. During this time, we pinpoint the single biggest drain on your energy and clarity. We seek to understand what's keeping you stuck and ensure you walk away with one simple, personalised action that you can take right now. If you have questions about coaching and working together, I can also answer them in that space too. These are one-to-one on Zoom and focused entirely on you and your leadership challenges. Remember, spots are limited, so you get my full focus. I'll include the link for you to book yours. And hey, if you're curious about being coached live on the podcast like Elliot was, then I would love to hear from you. You do not need to have it all figured out. You just need to be open to the conversation. Thank you so much for listening. If something from this episode stuck with you, let me know. Drop me a message and say what landed for you. And until next time, lead well and don't forget to look after yourself too.